that
This
on our
conference will now be recorded.
posting that on our YouTube page shortly after the meeting. So with that, Chair Rotter, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Blake. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Welcome everyone to the Thursday, February 11th, 2021 edition of the Iowa 911 Communications Council. If we could please start with a roll call. Kara, could you give us a roll call of our council, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you. Tracy Bearden?
Here.
Chair Rotter?
Here.
George Griffith?
Here.
Mike Bryant? Mark Murphy?
Here.
Jeff Anderson?
Here.
Robert Johannesson?
Here.
Rob Dennert? Lawrence Hartpence? Jack D'Angelo?
Here.
Taylor Teeple? I'll go back up. I think Rob Dennert, I saw him pop on. Rob Dennert, are you here? We do have a quorum, Chair.
Rob is here. He's having trouble with his mic.
Oh, okay. We have a quorum.
Okay,
Mike
thank
Bryant is here also.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll start off. Could I entertain a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move, Mark Murphy.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Anderson.
Griffith.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And motion carries. And then likewise, could I get a motion to approve the January 14th, 2021 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
And against, same sign. And the motion carries. Okay, Blake, do you have a report for us?
I do. Let me get this pulled up and I'll jump right into it. All right, there is a lot to get to. I know there's probably a lot of people on the line for various discussions, so we will get to it as expeditiously as we can. First off, starting with the program financials, we did do the quarterly payments at the end of January to walk through some of those. Nothing really out of the ordinary. We took in $7.8 million, almost $7.9 million in surcharge revenue. Of course, 60% of that goes to the PSAP. It ends up being about $4.7 million to the PSAP. And after we paid the bills, about $748,000 was transferred to the operating surplus. Again, nothing particularly out of the ordinary. With PSAP payments, you should have all received those by now. So if your service boards or your county treasurer has not received those, feel free to get in touch with us and we can track down where that is. Any questions on any of the quarterly financials? Okay, I will continue on then. Quickly on the strategic plan update, we have had a number of the work group kickoff calls. Thank you for those who have participated in those. Those generally the kickoff calls have gone very well and quite short. It's really kind of an introduction to the topic that the work group will be working on and kind of some homework prior to the next meeting. So a lot of the meetings have been, the second meetings have already been scheduled. And hopefully, again, that homework type stuff is being worked on. Again, nothing really significant other than that, other than to just let the council know that those are occurring. if you're still interested in participating in a work group, don't hesitate to reach out to Allie or myself, and we will get you added to whichever one you're interested in. A kind of an exciting update that I wanted to provide. The Des Moines Metro PSAPs are taking part in a pilot project through T-Mobile. T-Mobile has the capability to do location-based routing, so it's based on the handset rather than the cell tower sector. So thinking that the Metro has kind of a good area to do that pilot program, to kind of have some boundaries, as well as, you know, a higher population, probably more likely to have a higher concentration of T-Mobile customers. We decided to take that up first. So that is kind of the next evolution of next generation 911 call base or call routing. So kind of exciting. We will then, you know, after a short pilot in the metro area, look to roll that out statewide. There's really no difference to the PSAPs. You might notice some getting calls from some parts of your county or your PSAP jurisdiction that you're not used to getting, and that's really because of the enhanced accuracy of the routing using the handset location rather than the cell sector. So there is always the fallback if there's a gap in the GIS data. The call does fall back to that cell sector based routing. So it's not getting any worse, it can only get better. So that's kind of an exciting project, and we'll make sure to keep you up to date on that. Any questions so far before I move on? Okay, moving on, I did want to provide an update. We requested and received permission, went through all of the steps and signatures and state process to engage in a sole source contract extension with Comtech. That contract negotiation is really, you know, in its infancy. We had to go through the hurdles of the procurement of sole source. And so that is underway. I needed to update the council on that. You know, of course, with those discussions in their infancy, things could go awry, not expecting them to, but just wanted to let everyone know that those discussions will be beginning to sign a new contract with Comtech. Along those same lines, wireline migration continues to progress. At the end of the day, there will be 73 PSAPs completed on the merged next generation 911 network. So about 2/3 of the way done at this point. We did have a conference call earlier this week with the PSAPs that have direct trunks into them from various telcos. There are 10 PSAPs impacted. So we did provide an update to those PSAPs that are a little bit more of a one-off and will require a little bit more care and work. And those have all been kind of end loaded onto the schedule to give us additional time to work on those. If you're looking for the map, by the end of the day, there'll be about 3 other counties colored in green. So you can see that's filling in nicely. Doing things a little bit out of order today. I know there's a lot of other topics that people are here to discuss. So want to get through the kind of the traditional stuff first, and then we'll come back and kind of focus on some of those high priority items that people might have. So there's definitely more to come, but at this point, I'm going to allow, I believe, Paul Guest from Zetron to provide an update on the shared services project.
Thanks, Blake, and good morning, everyone. Keep this short and simple. A couple of good pieces of news. The dual backhaul retrofits were on the far side of the downslope. We have more done than are remaining to be done, and within the next couple of weeks, we expect to have all of the dual backhaul retrofits completed. Likewise, we're looking at a short window of time left for supporting the Comtech Alley and wireline services migrations, with the last one scheduled to complete on April the 1st. And no, that's not an April Fool's joke. The next slide, please, Blake. Just again, a update of the map of where the shared services are active. And then the third and final slide for myself. And Lynn can't be with us this morning because she's actively working one of the maintenance windows to do the dual backhaul retrofits. I just wanted to bring to the council's attention that we do publish a monthly newsletter for the shared services of call taking called the Iowa Insider. And it's open to anyone on the council that would be interested in receiving it. If you just email Lynn at the address that's up on the slide, she'll make sure that you're added to the list. And then you can see the same material that the PSAPs on the shared services call taking platform are receiving on a monthly basis. And with that, Blake, I'll send it back to you with my thanks.
All right, thank you, Paul. Any questions for Paul on the shared services? All right, then I will continue on with other reports from the program manager. We still have a handful of outstanding forms. You can see the counties listed there, the 4 for the expenditure collection form. Again, on that one, the legal deadline is the end of March. If we don't receive it, we do unfortunately have to withhold surcharge. So you'll want to get those in if your name is listed there, as well then as 3 more counties that we need to complete the service board memberships forms for the year. And you can see who's listed there. GIS grant update. It was a really good month in January. 32 counties met the benchmarks. So, about a third of the way done, and really just 1 month out of the 6-month period to meet those benchmarks. So you can see $774,000 passed through so far in fiscal year 2021. There were no requests for council travel, public education, or the training fund for this month, so nothing to consider there. And then the slide that I think we'll spend a little bit of time on here. First, from the federal level, there's always been a lot of discussion about 911 fee diversion from the FCC. They have been required by Congress to do reports of fee diversions over the last 10 or 12 years. With the federal omnibus budget bill that was passed right before the end of the calendar year, there was actually some language in there that mandates the FCC take a harder look at this topic. And these are not, optional items that the FCC is undertaking. Again, it was passed by Congress and signed by the president. So they are things that they have to work on. A couple of them are actually a little bit probably beneficial. The first, that the FCC will fully define allowable uses of 911 surcharge. They've never actually done that before. They've kind of had some guidelines. They've had some things that are kind of clearly diversions, but there's a lot of gray area in this topic. CAD, personnel expenses, radio, large statewide radio projects, all of those are kind of in the gray area. So this will require that they actually define allowable uses. It also provides a formal path for appeal. That's never been in place before either. If for those who have been around a couple years, Iowa did actually find itself on the diversion list a handful of years ago. It was kind of tied into the statewide LMR, and not to rehash that bad history, but we found ourselves on that diversionary list. So we did not have a formal path to appeal that decision previously. Through this notice of proposed rulemaking and future FCC action, we would have had a path to appeal that and work with the FCC to make previously considered unallowable expenses now allowable. So a couple of those are actually good and beneficial, kind of formalizing of the process. Another thing that their notice of proposed rulemaking will consider disallows diversionary states from serving on FCC or FirstNet committees. This is kind of a weird one, and I know a lot of agencies or organizations have kind of pushed back on this. It's kind of the equivalent of punishing your daughter when your son messes up. But the FCC still seems to kind of be interested in this topic. So it would basically, disallow anyone from serving on an FCC or a FirstNet committee if you are from a state that diverts. So for an example, I'm on the Public Safety Advisory Committee. I represent NASNA for FirstNet. I would not be allowed to be on that committee if Iowa was decided to have diverted 911 fees. So wanted to make sure that everyone was up to date on that. I don't believe Iowa is going to, at least not from our office, is going to provide any comments to that notice of a proposed rulemaking. However, NASNA, again, that's the association of my peers, is providing comments, and I think our opinion from our office is really kind of in lockstep with NASNA's comments. Again, just really wanted to kind of make sure everyone was up to date on that, and there'll definitely be kind of more stringent looking at 911 fee diversions in the future. Any questions on that before I move on? All right, I will then continue. A couple weeks ago, we were made aware of a court case that had really kind of been percolating in Mahaska County for a number of years. And it really kind of goes to 28E agreements, who is allowed to enter into them. It involves 911 service boards and emergency management commissions as well. And at this point, I'm actually going to turn it over to our Attorney General Rep. Ben Flickinger for kind of a summary of that ruling and kind of the perspective from what he's looking at as he read through that decision. Ben, go ahead.
Thanks, Blake. Can everyone hear me? Yep. Okay.
Yep, you're good.
So yeah, it was a very kind of interesting ruling by the judge. I'm not going to bore you with all the details on it. It's kind of very technical in nature, but just a little bit of the background. So as I'm sure all of you are aware, there's basically two ways that 911 boards can be created. There's the standard way laid out by statute. And then the statute also allows for boards to be created alternatively by a 28E agreement, which are generally just general power sharing agreements between government agencies and either other government agencies or private entities. And in Mahaska County, they went with this alternative route. And so their 911 board is created by a 28E agreement. And then they wanted to set up a joint communication services agreement with their emergency management commission in the county. And the county board of supervisors disagreed with that or didn't like how they were doing it. So that's kind of how the whole case started years ago. Fast forward to today, and the judge basically said that under 28E, the entities that can enter into a 28E agreement are very specifically set out in statute. And this joint 911 service board that was itself a 28E entity did not have the power to do that, to enter into another one with the EMC. So that's where that judge came down. And right now it's one court case in one county. So it's limited pretty much to Mahaska County at this point. There are some issues that could potentially have a broader impact, but to the extent that most boards just use the traditional route, it's probably still somewhat limited in effect. But if it is something that, Homeland Security and, the 911 boards around the state want to look at and potentially try to get around this judge's ruling, there are options available going forward that we're kind of looking into. There's always legislative fixes if we want to go that route, but there's probably some other ways around it if you want to avoid that. But that's kind of where that agreement or that whole process in Mahaska County is at this point. And I don't know if the 911 board there is planning to appeal it or not. I think they're still within the window to do so, but I haven't seen that come through. I see there's a question. Can boards that were formed under 2080 agreements change to be a Chapter 34A board? Yes, that's always a possibility. It would depend on the 28E agreement. But, you know, the members of the board could always switch back to the traditional 34A route. They just have to, you know, follow the process of ending the 28E board and creating the standard one under 34A.
Thanks, Ben. And I'll see if there's any more questions here in a second, but I did look through the bylaws that we have on record from the counties. The vast overwhelming majority list 34A as their organizing authority. There's, I counted about 4 that primarily list 28E as their organization. And then there's another handful, probably another 4 or 5 that that list everything. They list 34A, 28E, and 29C. So I'm not a judge or a lawyer, so I'm not sure where that really falls. But again, the vast majority, from what I could tell, are organized under 34A. So this doesn't particularly apply, but definitely something to look into at your counties with your county attorneys. Any other questions or comments for Ben or myself or from anyone on this topic?
Blake, this is Tracy. So I just want to confirm. So the scope of the judge's ruling is based on Mahassa County forming under 28E and making some admissions. So it's not applicable. It's not, you can't transfer that to that 34A. It's hinged on that 28E agreement and not being a government entity, and those entities are not able to enter into a 28E with another based on that, correct?
That was the judge's ruling, correct? Is
Okay.
this board was a 28E entity and it couldn't then enter into a like sub 28E agreement, for lack of a better term.
Okay, perfect. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Any other questions? Either typed in the chat or if anyone on the line wants to ask. Doesn't sound like it on that topic. And again, we are recording this meeting. So if you know somebody that wanted to listen in and couldn't, we'll get it posted shortly after on the council's YouTube page. If not, I'll move on to the next topic. I know there is a specific legislative portion later on in the council meeting, but just to give you an update on 911 related things that we are tracking. There's a Iowa Utilities Board bill out there that's really cleanup language, but it does touch 34A. You can see the bill numbers listed there. 34A references local exchange carrier, LEC, and as well as CLEC, and it cross-referenced it with a section of code that IUB got rid of a couple years ago. So this really just puts that definition back into 34A. Really, there's no issues from our perspective on that. Those definitions do need to be in there, and it's really just going back to the old language. I know there's a couple people from IUB on the call. I'll pause to see if you guys have anything to add, but it's pretty cut and dry cleanup language bill like I described.
Hi, Blake. This is Lindsay with the Utilities Board. That sounds like it's pretty accurate, so I don't know that I have anything else to add.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sounds good. Thank you. Those bills do a couple other things, but primarily for 911, that's the takeaway. It's just a small portion of the overall bill. And finally, there is a bill out there for basically cost recovery, to eliminate cost recovery of telephone companies as it relates to 911. Those are Senate File 249, which was introduced by Senator Elder, and House File 407, which was introduced by Representative Fisher. We've been asked to do fiscal notes for those, which we've submitted to the Legislative Services Agency. Our take on the bill is it basically tries to do away with the costs that telcos can charge both on the wireline and wireless side. At this point, I don't believe that either chamber has scheduled a subcommittee meeting on it. I believe in the Senate, there has been a subcommittee assigned, but I have yet to see an actual meeting get scheduled for that. Any questions on the legislative portion of my update? If not, that ends my briefing. Unless there's any other questions, I will turn it back over to Chair Rotter.
Okay, Blake, a lot of information there. Thank you very much. Moving on, I think Blake already mentioned we don't have any training fund requests, so we'll move on to technical advisories. Does anybody have any technical advisories for us?
This is Jack D'Angelo, Mr. Chair. I don't have anything today for the council.
Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to our update on the Iowa Interoperability Governance Board. Chris Myers, are you on?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, 911 Council. I have several updates today. I will try to make these as brief as possible. A quick update on our TA requests. We've had several that have been approved, and we've got some work that is ongoing with getting them rolling. Perhaps one of the more cool things that we may be able to complete this year or shortly after will be the development of an Iowa FOG. This would include a paper and electronic version. So essentially, we're working the paperwork that comes with that project through legal entities to make sure that the MOA is agreeable for both sides on the state side and through CISA and ICTAP. So far, we've made good progress with that, and I'm expecting to send something back to CISA by the end of this week. Additionally, with TA requests, you may have heard that we're working on a COML, either delivered in person or virtual. We're looking at doing a survey, and that survey is actually out in the wild for people to fill out. You may have seen it distributed through some of your associations. With that virtual COML, there's some technical requirements for, with respect to PC equipment. We're trying to make sure that if we do a virtual COML, that it's going to be workable for potential attendees. That survey is going to be live through the end of February, and then once we have all that information aggregated, we'll figure out if we want to do the virtual or if we want to hold out for in-person. We're also working on a state-sponsored COMT with the Iowa National Guard. That is likely going to be set for the week of April 5th. There'll be additional announcements on that coming soon. So there'll be several training opportunities coming up in the next couple of months, and more hopefully coming as well. With respect to some of our SDR deployments dating back into 2020, it sounds like the East SDR deployment in Atkins, Iowa is winding down, and working on DMOB for that. The West SDR deployment in Clinton is still ongoing. Kind of doubling back to training, this time state level training. We've looked at several locations for in-person sessions for the ISICS regional training. This would be the next round of it. We're looking at possibly pushing back the in-person sessions to accommodate the local COVID restrictions and other associated workloads associated with COVID and anything else that may come around this year. Look for that training to be pushed back probably later into Q2, possibly summer or fall. We just want to make sure that we're not overloading people with extra stuff and that we can get as much attendance as possible from those sessions. We're also going to be exploring a virtual option to help get training out to agencies sooner as opposed to later, because we are working on some standards updates. We are also still offering one-on-one training at the PSAP level and for in-field personnel for the interoperability talk groups and status board. We can accommodate this again in person or virtually. We've completed several in the last month or so, and we have more lined up as well. So if you want to schedule a session, let us know. Again, there's no cost for this training, and we can do some things to tailor it to your agencies as well. ISICS applications that were approved last month include Emmett County Sheriff's Office and Marshall County EMA. Both were level 2 applications. We have one application up for today. That's Medic EMS out of Davenport. They've made it to the board for final approval for level 2 access. Some additional work on standards and updated policies continues through the board. You'll probably see that standard 4.2.0 agency maintenance is up for an update and approval today. Policies for adoption and the use of new things like the 700 megahertz air to ground channels and an LTE deployable policy will be viewed today at the board, along with standard 1.5.2, which is our landing zone coordination standard. It's possible that those 3 documents may go out for public comment today, so be on the lookout for that announcement, assuming it does happen. Status board, quickly, we had some maintenance earlier this month, I believe this past Monday. That's the only outage or issue that we're aware of with use of this. So that's good. We continue to onboard new users as they come in. Sign up if you've not yet done so. And of course, training is available and your county level tab can be customized to almost however you feel like you need it to be. New FirstNet sites over the last month or so primarily have been small cell nodes in the Des Moines metro area. There is a lot of work ongoing to fill in coverage gaps in rural parts of the state, especially southwestern Iowa, south of Highway 92 and west of I-35. As those sites are lit up, I will report to this group as well. And of course, one last item with respect to FirstNet, our FirstNet AT&T representative, so the AT&T side of that house, will be transitioning to a new individual, David Barnett, who you may have met in the past. He is transferring down to Tennessee to be closer to his family, and we're working to ensure that the replacement that we get is at least on par with David, which will be a tall order to achieve. That's the update for the month, Mr. Chair. I will go ahead and take any questions.
Okay, Chris, thank you very much. Moving on, we get an update from U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Jim Lundstedt, I think I saw you on our list of attendees. Do you have anything to share with us today?
Good morning, Chair Router. Sound check, please.
Hearing you just fine.
Okay. No report today. I will mention, however, that CISA is increasing its effort to make entities aware of the threats of ransomware. And we are holding a first of a series of webinars this afternoon, 1 to 2 p.m. on the topic. Our website has a lot of resources on this. It continues to be one of the most significant threats to public safety and critical infrastructure entities in the U.S. If anyone is interested in that, I do share that information fairly regularly with the program manager and the SWIC, but I would be happy to put something in the chat bar if anybody is interested. Other than that, no remarks further today, sir.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Thanks for joining us. Okay, I know that we've had a little trouble still getting together with our committees, but I'll just throw out the question. Do we have any updates from 34A Administrative Code Committee update?
No, Sheriff. We're going to hopefully get working once these subcommittees that the state are doing kind of advance, and then there's potentially work for us. So we're just standing by to see what we can do in the future.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Any report from 911 Communications Professional Committee update? Okay. Then outside of what Blake had talked about in legislative issues, do we have any other legislative issues that would someone like to talk about? Okay. I don't have any unfinished business or new business, and I think Blake already mentioned there are no travel requests. Do we have any business from the floor? Any 911 issues from the PSAPs? Okay, hearing none, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, just for the record, I think we had the motion from Tracy. I'm not sure who was the second.
Rob Dennert.
All right, Rob, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Stay safe.